Good day to all our viewers, all our listeners in the 7 continents of the world. Yes, Antarctica, Africa, Europe, North America, South America, Asia. Thank you so much for your loyalty. Antarctica, yeah, I know very few human beings on Antarctica, but it's still part of the 7 continents of the world. Yes. So welcome to State of the Nation Nigeria. It's a program we always have every Friday on the Atlanta Discourse channel. Yes, so we're still talking about the country that I love so much, the country most of our viewers love so much, the country everybody expects so much from, that is acting behind schedule, the country with the largest population of Black people on the face of the earth, the largest concentration, some will say, on the planet, of Black people anywhere, Nigeria. So, but even at that, there's a lot happening. Now, there's no way we're going to talk about Nigeria without talking about Africa. There's no way we talk about Africa without talking about Nigeria. But today we're going to talk a lot about migration. And there was an article on the Atlantic Digest by Adejuwon Anjoorin about 2 weeks back, 2 weeks thereabout. And the topic was, Europe shifting sands, a new era for immigration. Fantastic read. You can go to Atlantic Digest, atlanticdigest.com to read it. It's just extraordinary. And it's something that reverberates every day, And since we're talking about Nigeria and Africa, we have to bring the only person that can shed light on that particular topic. And who else is that but Adejuwon Anjoorin himself, who wrote that piece, that article. Adejuwon Anjoorin, welcome to Atlanta Discourse once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for having me.
Yeah. It's been a while that we had you because you're one of our regulars, but fine. No, I mean, what you wrote was really thought-provoking, and you even broke it into different layers, You looked at the World War II, post-World War II alliance between America and Europe, which is almost, if you look at it, might not even really be in existence based on what's happening. But you said the sands are shifting. What is really happening? You also spoke about what the likes of Professor Lumumba has said, vis-a-vis Africa having more rulers that favor. There was a word you used already, I can't remember right now, but you spoke along that trend. So how do you think the new immigration laws, that's my first question to you, how do you think the new immigration laws in Europe will affect African migrants, and what implication does it have for the African-Europe relationship? Over to you, Adejuwon.
Thank you very much for having me again, Mr. Balogun, on your amazing platform. I wrote that piece because it's been a burning topic in my heart based on the things that have been happening. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, I was in London in March. I was in London in December as well as in March. And I met a lot of friends. I met a lot of, our people are there, and there was just this trepidation, there was tension. Migrants in the UK have this Nigerian people like, oh my God, what's going to happen? We don't know what is happening. Kim Badnock is speaking, and all of this is happening. And I could see that there was a disconnect between most people's understanding of their economic situation and the larger issues going on across the world and history. So that is where, as a matter of fact, the essay you're talking about, it's like a sequel to the one I wrote about 2 months ago, where I talk about Japa No More.
Yeah, true.
The rise of right wing, the right wing of Europe. Mm-hmm. So, in a nutshell, I'd just like to paint a very brief history.
Go ahead.
The Second World War ended in 1945, and that was a very consequential moment in contemporary world history, because what happened was essentially two big powers emerged. Going into that war, there was no clear big power. The United States was strong, Russia was strong, but Germany seemed to be the beast. So Germany was crushed under Hitler, and then the US rose up, and the USSR, the Soviet Union, rose up. And in the events after the year, that war was so devastating, was so catastrophic. I think over 75 million human beings were killed in that war. And then also it culminated in the dropping of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the nuclear bombs in Japan. Mm-hmm. And when the whole world saw the impact of the nuclear bombs, nobody wanted a part of that anymore. So they all decided to come together, led by the United States, to say, let us come together and form some organizations and create some tools and instruments through which we can resolve our issues and help each other without having to go to war. So that, because if we have to do this again, because don't forget that between the First World War and the Second World War was only about 20 years. But around 1914 was the First World War. Second World War was, in the 1930s all the way to 1945. And before the First World War, it was just war and war, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation. So now, the Second World War traumatized the nations severely. And they decided, you know what, we can't keep doing this. So that's how what they call the Bretton Woods institutions was born. The United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and UNICEF, WHO, they're all offshoots of that global collaboration. What the global collaboration also began to do was to begin to break down the walls, the social-cultural walls between the continents and the nations. So immigration began to increase. People began to travel, and make things began to happen. Shortly after 1945 in America, we saw the fall of segregation. We saw the African Americans win the Civil Rights Act in 1964. They could vote because all the forces of separation were falling, were melting down, and forces of integration and collaboration were building up. And you saw more influx of Africans coming to the US and to the UK. And then the UK began to open up. Now, another thing that also happened, so travel increased, cultural integration increased.
Okay.
What also happened was the US and Russia, who are allies against Germany in that war, when Germany fell down, when Germany was falling, they didn't trust each other. And when the US displaced its nuclear power, the USSR said, you know what, they have to get this nuclear power. So a Cold War, the Cold War began. And when the Cold War began, Europe became afraid of Russia. Western Europe at this point became very afraid of Russia, but Europe was devastated because Europe was the epicenter of the Second World War. Europe was devastated. In history, we talk about the Marshall Plan. The United States led with the Marshall Plan, deploying billions of dollars they had to rebuild Europe. So there came a gentleman agreement between the United States and Europe and Western Europe to say, your land is demolished, your countries are finished, you have no economies in Western Europe, on this side of Germany, or from Germany all the way to the US, to UK. Don't bother. Now you have Russia there building nuclear weapons. Don't bother trying to invest in nuclear weapons. The US, we will protect you from Russia, from the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union was powerful. The Soviet Union had annexed Georgia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine. So it made sense for Western Europe to look at it and say, oh my God, whether it's Stalin or Khrushchev, maybe they will come and take us over to the way Hitler did. So Western Europe aligned with the United States. The United States built weaponry and would protect Europe, and Europe will spend its own money to develop its own economies. So that is why Europe has been able to use its funds to basically build its own economy, have all these social programs that began to attract Africans to go there as African economies went down. So Africans began to run to, oh my God, the healthcare is so great, or the education is so great. All of that was because Europe didn't have to spend a lot of money on defense. America would take care of defense, and they would just contribute 2.5% of their GDP to NATO, which they were not doing until Trump came. The arrival of Trump changed everything. So now Trump is saying, we have protected you for so long. You have lived under our umbrella, nuclear umbrella, under our protection, but it's costing us too much. You guys too need to start spending money. In fact, Trump verbally said, I told Russia to do whatever, I don't know if you've seen that video, I told Russia to do whatever they want to do with you since you're not going to pay. So basically, Trump has scattered that arrangement between Western Europe and America. So all of the funds that Europe had committed to sustaining its nearly socialist economies, taking care of its people, all of a sudden, the lady, the head of the European Union, Van Ursula, I believe it is, announced
the lady,
that Europe was going to spend 840 billion euros on defense over the next decade. That's a lot of money. That's almost €1 trillion. All of the Western European countries are going to pull those funds from their economies. When they pull those funds from their economies to build up defense, they won't have enough funds to support their social programs the way it has been. So what's going to happen is the economies are going to grow tighter in Europe, in the UK, across Western Europe. When the economies grow tighter, generally speaking, as we've seen in America with the rise of the Patriotic Front and all of these right-wing guys, when economies get tighter, then it follows with an anti-immigration, anti-immigrant sentiment. Oh, you guys are taking our jobs. If you remember, a lot of the people that were supporting President Trump, oh, they're taking our jobs, send them away. So as the European economy shrinks, because now they have to start building weapons, which costs a lot, anti-immigration sentiment is going to grow. The laws are going to go tighter on immigrants because now the country is trying to funnel money to its own citizens first, protect its own citizens first. So I was telling my friends in the UK and explaining this background to say it's not about to get any better. The funding, there's no free lunch, even in Freetown. The funding that made Europe attractive to you guys, it's changing. $840 billion is a lot of money to pull out over a decade. So you guys are in for a tighter season. And a few months after that, the UK came up with these extremely stringent laws, raising the bars, making it tighter to get visas, making it harder for those who are already in the system to be able to regularize into the system. And now a lot of Nigerians in the UK and across Europe are beginning to consider, oh my God, is it worth it staying here? Do I go to the UAE? Do I go to New Zealand? Or do I go back home? Now, that is not all. There's also the cultural issue. As you can see, like the rise of the right wing in Europe began as a pushback against immigration because of culture. There was a lot of cultures coming in. We had the same thing in the United States as well. A lot of people began to feel, oh my God, our true identity is being diluted because there's like an influx, which is a massive influx of immigrants, yes. So all across Europe, we began to see a rise in right-wing politics that Europe has shied away since 1945, since Hitler. It was shameful to identify with these ideologies.
But all of a sudden, there's an upsurge now.
Like you go to in Germany, they have a political party called the AfD that has risen, that basically eulogizes the ideologies of Adolf Hitler. And all the remaining political parties have had to form a coalition to freeze them out of government. In the Netherlands, you have that going on. In Hungary, you have President Viktor Orban, who's straight right-wing, promoting a lot of right-wing ideologies. As a matter of fact, the battle going on between Trump and Harvard is said to be taken directly from the playbook of Viktor Orban in Hungary, because that's what he did to universities. So the right-wing movement is growing up strong in Europe as well as in the US. So immigrants are going to feel the brunt of it. So that's number one issue that I wrote about, that people in Europe and those of us in the US, please be aware that the sands are shifting, the clouds are shifting. The clouds that are settled with stability at the time we began to move out to the West, they are shifting. The clouds that were there pre-1945 are coming back. You can see the fracture. The alliances are fracturing. They are coming back. So we have to watch. We can't sit pretty. We have to watch the global scene keenly over the next 5, 10, 15 years so that we can have a proper plan. So that is number one. Now, number two is on the African continent itself. So I talked about Dr. Arikana Chihombori Kwao. Her name, I just call her Mama. They call her Mama Africa. Mama Africa. And then Professor Pierre Lumumba. So about 4 years ago now, we began to see videos of this woman speaking passionately about Africa and Africa's underdevelopment in the hands of Western powers. How Western powers have been taking advantage of Africa, stealing the resources. She told us about the pact for the continuation of colonization, which France foisted on its 14 colonies while they were giving them the so-called independence. And part of the concessions that this country had to concede to France was essentially exactly what the name said. It was a continuation of colonization.
The one they call France Afrique.
Exactly. So you will always use our currency in your economies. You would keep your foreign reserves. So the 14 Francophone colonies or countries, their external reserves had to be with French banks, and they could never borrow more than 20% per time of their own money. And France had the right to reject that. So France said, you can't borrow your money, then you can't borrow your money. Then France will always have the first right of refusal to all your resources that you discover. France will always have a military base in your country. It was a chokehold. It was a chokehold independence. And France didn't start that in Africa. They started with Haiti. If you remember that in Haiti, when Haiti fought the French and drove out the French and got their independence, Napoleon Bonaparte, I believe was his name, the head of France at the time, came back with his army and said, you know what, you owe us money for driving us out. Otherwise, we'll come back and basically slaughter all of you. So Haiti had to pay some ridiculous amount of money, Mr. Balogun. I don't know the exact number, but it took them over 100 years to pay France for their independence. And today, Haiti is a mess. So this is what France have been doing. And other Western other Western powers, did the same through neo-colonialism and tried to keep African countries underdeveloped and take our resources for cheap while they were prospering. So Africa began to speak about these things. At the same time, Professor Pierre Lumumba from Kenya, who was their former anti-corruption chief, he also began to speak about the same things from the perspective of speaking directly to African leaders. To say, African leaders, what are you doing? They began to promote Pan-Africanism, which is Africans need to, imbibe a culture and a spirit where they love Africa and they put Africa first and they fight for Africa. So these two, Professor Lumumba and Mama Africa, over the past 4 years began to speak. And what we saw around 2022 was that in West Africa, we began to get military coups. Young military officers began to take over power. It happened in Niger Republic, it happened in Burkina Faso, it happened in Mali, and I believe in Guinea as well. So what these young African leaders who are military, I'm not going to call them dictators yet, military rulers who took over power, they began to implement the policies that Mama Africa and Professor Pierre Lumumba had been speaking about over the past 3 years. So you see the head of state of Burkina Faso has become like an inspiration across Africa and across Black people across the world, because he came back, he sent France out, he built the first gold refinery. It was shocking to me that Burkina Faso never had a gold refinery until this guy came, to a good degree, took over the resources of the country and began to rebuild. He's begun the process of rebuilding the country. He's also said a lot of things about Pan-Africanism. So my argument is this: Africans are excited. Afro-Caribbeans are excited. African Americans are excited about Ibrahim Traore and all of the other gentlemen who have taken over power and implementing these Pan-African ideologies. Please don't forget that the more you ask. I'm all for it. I'm excited. In fact, I dressed this way today to demonstrate my Pan-Africanism.
Oh, yeah.
But I do not want us to go to sleep again. We must understand, as we take over our continent from the Western powers, eventually there will be a reaction from the Western powers. If you're saying we can't take your gold for free, we can't take your uranium for cheap, and our economies are struggling, while all of a sudden African countries who used to be very poor are now rising up, there's likely to be a pushback again in Europe, potentially in America, where they say, okay, fine, since you guys now got it, since you guys want to run your own economies, you guys are excited about kicking France out, how about all of you go back home? So that can happen. I see it coming to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, where Burkina Faso will become a major wealthy country, Mali, Niger, because they are making a lot of money now from their resources, which they didn't have before. They were not,
and they are spending it very well.
Yes. Now, the money they are making now is at the expense of you, of somebody. It's not coming from nowhere. It's true. Yeah. So you have America saying, Europe, I can't sponsor your defense anymore. You have Africa saying, no, we are taking over our resources. We'll sell it at our own price. Who is losing money? Western Europe. What's Western Europe likely to do? Okay, all of you go back home. Go out. Since your heads of state, you're excited that your heads of state are, developing your countries now. Why don't you go back home so we can develop ours? So I see the anti-immigration sentiment growing worse. It's not going to get better. And that is why Africans in Europe and in America need to be aware of these things and be prepared for it. And then Africans back home and Africans abroad, we need to now step up our game in developing the motherland, because the whole reason why we have to go through all of this, why people are running helter-skelter. You have people in UK right now, Mr. Balogun, Nigerians with PhDs and masters in a bind. Oh, what am I going to do? Should I run to Canada? Should I run to Australia? We have a home. Our fathers built big houses. Your father was a deputy governor, Mr. Balogun. Like you, we call it like it's true. We are literally princes and princesses. My father's compound in Malaysia is big, but we are here, and some people we are getting. Oh my God. Am I sitting well? Am I not sitting well? We all have to come together, elect good. My argument is, let's elect good leaders. Let's fight for our land, because if we fight for our land and we'll build it, nobody's going to tell us to get out of their house. You know what I mean? So that's essentially the spirit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I like talking to you. It's a discussion also. So we also have an opinion. You're part of our editorial board, a major contributor to the Atlantic Digest and even the discourse. So now, in the Adejuwon, I mean, you've said so much post Second World War and all that. My question to you now is this. This same Western power sold democracy to us. They gave us the idea of democracy. We've had former President Obasanjo of Nigeria, even Pierre Lumumba, and so many others said, is democracy the best form of government for us? You understand? Because most of these Pan-African leaders, so to say, in Burkina Faso, Mali, and what have you, are military rulers, you understand? And in that same continent, we have a Paul Biya that have been there since 1982 or 83 after he removed Adejuwon, who was his boss at that time. We had in Gabon, where we had Bongo Forever and another
Bongo Omar, I think it was.
And the guy there now is even a cousin to the Bongo he removed.
There's Togo, there's Equatorial Guinea,
the Nascimento dynasty
46
is there
years
forever, And in Equatorial Guinea, you have Obiang Nguema Basogo, whose son is the vice president. So, I mean, looking at all this, and even countries where you have relative peace, Nigeria, Algeria, and all that have democracy, the elections are free, but are they fair? So, in the Adejuwon, people will leave the continent, because most of the people that have left left through, actually people from West Africa, East Africa, they left through Niger, Chad, through the Sahara, jumped into the water. I'm sure more than half of the people that were, I don't know the statistic, but more than half of the people that left did not make it even across the ocean. So my question is this: is democracy the right type of the right system of governance for Africans, especially sub-Saharan Africa? Because when you look at all this, I mean, we can't but remove ourselves from what the colonialists have given us. It does look like, okay, they've imbibed the culture in us, and that culture, if we don't obey that culture, which is democracy, they won't appreciate. But even sometimes when military come, they do support it. But is there another system we can operate, outside democracy, or a system of democracy that suits us?
I watched President Obasanjo's speech when he said, when he made that statement that we needed some, I think African democracy, something like that. This is my opinion on the topic. So if you look at the Middle East, Saudi Arabia right now, President Trump just finished a tour of the Middle East, right?
Saudi Arabia, UAE, and
UAE, Qatar. They are monarchies, right? They are monarchies. You go from there, you go to the Asian tigers, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, who have recorded significant progress over the past.
A lot of
progress, yes. I think they are mostly parliamentarian nations, some form of democracy. You have the United States that has been a constitutional democracy for over 200 years, and UK. My opinion is that it is not about the system of governance. It's about the culture of the people. And this is why I have been the culture of the people, what the people want. I've been a big fan of Professor Partey for a long time because he has been on this table for a long time, this culture issue. I think he even started an organization that talks about reformation of culture. It doesn't matter the system of governance that we get, as long as the determination in the heart of the average Nigerian seeking office is personal enrichment. Whether you use democracy as we are doing now, or you get a dictator or a monarchy, the result is not going to be different. The result is not going to be different. The problem is not democracy. And to be honest, the problem is not, like you said, Thomas Sankara is one of the most iconic leaders. Although it was a short reign, about 4 years, but he's one of the most iconic leaders that Africa has ever had, who developed this country with so much passion, and he was disciplined. When Thomas Sankara was killed, he had nothing, not even a personal car. And he had changed his nation and given his nation a voice. He was a military dictator, so to speak. He was not voted in. Gaddafi was an authoritarian, but he brought tremendous development and stability to Libya. Tremendous. But he did freedom of speech, he didn't have that. So Africans, we have to deal with the issues that we have, which include, first and foremost, inordinate, insatiable greed, selfishness, putting personal prosperity over national interest and national prosperity, rising above the primordial sentiments of tribalism. These are the issues that we need to deal with. If we do not deal with them, I do not see any system of governance that will help. Then I talked about corruption, I talked about selfishness, impunity, the culture of the strong man. If you notice my writings, I've spoken a lot about this. We have a culture of strongmanism, which is, I will do something to you and nothing will happen.
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? Nothing, like, there's the sense of belonging to a system where there's accountability. People seeing themselves as above accountability because of who they know, who they are connected with, is behind the insane amount of stealing. Mr. Balogun, Nigeria just retrieved 753 mansions from a single man. And this man is in his 60s. He has about 20 years left. I don't know. I'm not God. I'm not God at all. So let me take that back. But 753 mansions from a single estate that was retrieved from this man, and billions of naira in cash were also retrieved from him. The blogger, the influencer, Adejuwon Anjoorin, just released a documentary on our former Minister of Oil.
Oh, yeah. Desani Madrid.
Yes. It's said that she took away over $6 billion US, right? And it didn't start today. Like, people want to become strong men and demigods. And these people are not stealing for food or feeding or even for their children. No. They are stealing to be able to rule the lives of other people as gods. To be able to hold a whole state in a chokehold and drive out the governor because one man believes that he has a right to dictate everything going on because he bought the forms for everybody in that state, every contestant in that state. These are the demons that we Africans need to exorcise from our character. Without doing that, it's unlikely that anything will work. Now, in the meantime, if I would recommend anything at all, especially for Nigeria, it would be a return to the system of governance that we had in 1960, which was
the confederal structure, the regional
correct.
Confederal structure. Okay.
It was democratic, but there was autonomy of regions. And because there was autonomy of regions, there was relative coherence in vision and strategy. And it helped the regions compete healthily and they were able to make progress. Nigeria has not recorded since 1966 the progress in Nigeria recorded between 1960 and 66. In those 6 years, Nigeria has not risen to that level ever
I
again.
agree with you. 1,000,000%, I agree.
So this is really what I believe it is. But it's more about the demons that we have to exercise. What Ibrahim Traore is doing now, I hope that he stays true to it. He has not changed his he's a captain in the army, right? His rank. He has not made himself a general.
Yeah, he has not promoted himself. Yeah.
He has not increased his salary. He has not bought an official private jet. This man hasn't given himself anything. Everything he's made for his country, he's giving back to the country, inspiring them, tomato plant, rebuilding roads. Did you know that I watched a documentary on Burkina Faso last week? From independence, their independence was around Nigeria's independence as well, around 1960. They only had 3,000 kilometers of paved road in the entire country. Everything else was dusty road. This guy has gotten Burkina Faso youth building roads. He's got a volunteer development, a volunteer force of citizens supporting the army in repelling, the terrorists. This is what we need. To be honest, if you see how popular the guy is, you will see that Africans don't care really about democracy. No, we don't really, and I'll tell you why. You see, freedom of speech is great. I'm a human rights consultant. I love that. All of these things that democracy brings, but all of that becomes a secondary issue when people can't eat. When people have no hospitals, or people are dying of stupid sicknesses. So seeing Ibrahim Traore developing the infrastructure, developing the land, staying true, staying honest, and doing the right things has gotten all black people from Africa to diaspora excited about this guy. Excited about this guy. And he's a military head of state. So Africans don't really care. All we want to see is a visionary honest and competent leadership. Whether you are in military
Absolutely.
khaki, whether you are in suit or agbada, is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just forced to agree with you because I've had guests, real scholars like the Thomas or Dean Carlos, and everybody keeps saying, even the Oseloka, great Oseloka, Baze, people like Aki Oshitok, everybody has said it, that it's failure of leadership, especially in the case of Nigeria. That our problem is failure of leadership in the traditional institution. I think it was Jumoke Akitela, one of my guests, fantastic guests. She said it's not just at government level, failure of leadership at family level. You understand? At church level, at traditional administration, traditional
Every
institution,
level.
at church
Educational
level.
institutions.
Yeah, everywhere. That is just pure, and the trickle down effect. Somebody even said that. I think I had a guest, Yemisi Ransom Kuti, fantastic guest also. She said that you can't even complain about what is happening in governance if you are not active in politics. Join a political party. You understand? You can't just sit at home and start complaining. Join a political party at what level? You understand? Hijack that party, organize yourself, hijack it. Then you can, after when you take the word, you take the local government. The power should actually reside in the local government because we are communal people anyway. Africans are communal. Yeah, that we're, and the politics they talk about itself, it's local. So based on what you said earlier on, Burkina Faso really got its independence before Nigeria. I think August 5, 1960. So they are some few months older than us. And it, like you said, 80 had to pay France 112 million French francs at that time, which is about $600 million in today's conversion. So I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. But let me ask you this: you're a diaspora, in America, doing what you're doing, great job. You're well known. You have a fantastic reputation. What role does the African diaspora have? What role do they have to play in all this? I'm not talking about people that are just migrating or people that want to come or people that those of you that have been here for a long time, that you are already in government, working with multinational institutions, Fortune 5,000, 400, all those, your vital statistic. How can you help Africa in this regard? Because most of you, your kids are not going back. They're American. They were born here. They're not going back. You understand? They don't. Their view of Africa is not extraordinary. I know during Obasanjo's rule in Nigeria, a lot of people came from Britain back home. There's a lot of people that came back from diaspora, but the atmosphere right now does not. I mean, it's not conducive. I mean, except we want to, it's something we're going to talk about. Maybe that'll be your last question, but. What role do the Nigerian diaspora have to play, especially the successful one? What role do they have to play in ensuring that their home country, Nigeria, Togo, Ghana, let's say Burkina Faso has been liberated to an extent. You understand? Zimbabwe and everywhere. What role do the African diaspora have to play in all this? In their sui milli, so to say.
We have a huge role to play. A very huge role to play, Mr. Balogun. Most countries that developed, including the state of Israel today, leaned heavily on their diasporan people.
Absolutely.
Nigeria has an army of diasporan professionals and entrepreneurs across all areas of human endeavor. What can we do? This is a very, very interesting question, and I'm going to share something with you today that I'm working on. But number one, to start with, as one of our pastors, Sam Adeyemi, spoke about this in the video that just went viral 2 days ago. Many Nigerians within Nigeria who have not traveled out, if you have never seen something, sometimes it's hard for you to imagine that it exists.
Or believe, yeah.
Yes. Before I jackpot 15 years ago, I really had doubts that 24-hour electricity was really the case in America. I thought this is not possible. Like, engines get hot, bearings wear, like something This is not possible. How can you tell me a country has? I had never seen that. But when I came to the US, I said, it's true. Except in the case where there's a storm and, maybe a tree falls and cuts a cable, which it will be fixed within 24 hours. The few hours will be fixed, exactly. The power just stays. When I first got to the US, I didn't sleep for like 3 hours. I wanted to I don't know that saying. I wanted to debunk the myth.
Yeah, to disconnect the
yes, because I was this Pan-African. I said, we are not that bad.
Everywhere feel like ironing your clothes before lights.
Exactly. Baba, it was just there.
Oh God.
The day I eventually saw it happen, I couldn't say that because I knew. I saw there was a thunderstorm. A tree fell, cut the cable. Within a few hours, once the rain went away, they put it. Well, my point is, when people have not seen things, they would argue that it's not possible. They would argue that it's not real. We have a responsibility to keep on educating, illuminating, educating our continental Nigerians as to what is possible. Through what you're doing, through Atlantic Digest, through this podcast, through engaging with political leaders. That's number one. Number two, because we are not within Nigeria, and the Nigerian state is pretty hard on dissent. You see how they once you are speaking too much, they will GSS will just pick you up. Only the very strong. My last essay was about the civic influencers. Right?
Yeah, very dark.
VDM was arrested. There was protest, they released him. Scott Iguma, his last video yesterday, he mentioned the name of an agency that's looking for him, that'll be asking for his location and address, and it says if he disappears, everybody should hold them responsible. So the Nigerian democracy has not really imbibed, Nigerian leadership has not imbibed, and security forces, they have not really imbibed the culture of the freedom of speech. That all speech, as long as it does not incite the public to violence, is protected under a democracy. It does not have to be nice. It does not have to be complimentary. Yes, it can be rude, but as long as it does not incite the public to violence and anarchy, it's protected free speech. Our security agencies and our leadership are struggling with this concept. So many people are afraid to speak up back home. We in diaspora, when we see injustice, when we see wrong, we have a responsibility to speak up. That is what the diasporans, I don't call it the diasporans that left, those who ran away from Abacha, the Dele Momodu's current presidents, Tinubu, Professor Wole Soyinka, when they started Radio Kudirats, they were writing, they put pressure on that government. We have a right to speak up for those back at home who may be afraid to speak. That's number two. Number three is those who have become successful here, invest back home. Don't just send money for food, but start businesses. Exactly. But we have to start businesses, start organizations, employ people. We can do that. But what is most important?
I know you are doing that already. You're doing that
in my little way in my hometown. But what is most important to me, which is my current project, is from here we can begin to engage directly with the Nigerian government. Right? There are many organizations now whose staff is remote, like Zoom. This platform we're using, the company, they have 150 employees in Atlanta. They don't have an office here. It's all remote. There are many organizations right now whose staff is all over the world. So if we're doing that in the corporate sector, I know you don't like sharing screen, right? When we are talking.
No, we can share. Why not?
Okay, let me show you. You have to turn it on, Mr. Balogun. So I can show you this platform. Okay. So this is a project that I'm presently working on, DiasporaBase.com. It's a platform in which I'm setting up a matching portal for Nigerian government institutions who need expertise in any field. And when this is fully built, I will come to you and we'll publicize it.
Yeah, well,
we'll have volunteers. We're going to have volunteers of diasporans in IT, in medicine, in accounting, in every area, science, register. So when government institutions and NGOs in Nigeria who have a project to do, but maybe they don't have enough funds, they don't have the expertise to do it, come onto this platform, put the project on here. The system, the algorithm will automatically, using artificial intelligence, match the professionals that you need with this project based on the project description.
Oh, wow.
So let's say, I don't know what agency is there. The National Health Institution, they want to build a portal. So we've put some sample, for example, like Lagos wants to build a health dashboard for something now. You come on here, you register. As an organization, we'll have a way to validate that the person registering you actually works for the agency. And they have the right to do this. So we'll go through all of that. Once that is done, put in your project. Once you put in your project description and the contact details of how we can contact you, our algorithm will look for people who are maybe medical doctors, IT professionals who can build the portal, people who have worked in insurance in America or in UK or wherever they are. The system will pull them, and then we, the administrators, along with the government agency, will select the right people who have volunteered to help build that. So from where you are, so that's why our tagline is lead change.
I love it already.
Lead change in your home country from anywhere in the world. This web portal will still be completed in a few weeks, and then we'll start going across to. So this will give a platform, because I know there are many people who can, your children are here, your wife is here, you have mortgage, you have this, you have that. You can't go back home right now. But your heart is open. You want to see things work back home. You engage with institutions here. It's like, why can't we do this in my hometown, in my state? You don't have to go. From your location, you'll be able to contribute skill set wise to build things, to put things in place. And if you want to donate, that's fine. But this is primarily to turn Nigeria's brain drain into Nigeria's brain gain. So we can begin to help the government. I don't think it's going to be easy. I know it's going to be, I know there's difficulties. I know there's going to be non-cooperative agencies and non-response. All of that, occupational hazards.
Yeah, we're not going to allow that bug goes down. If you want it done,
But I'm making a public call for Nigerians in the diaspora. Please, when we come to you, please register on this platform. And let us set up this opportunity where all of us can begin to practically build systems that will help develop Nigeria, so that unscrupulous public officials will not have a place to hide anymore. So these are some of the ways that we can engage from the diaspora.
Fantastic. I'm not surprised you came up with this, because I know you're a deep thinker and you're not far from home. I mean, apart from that, I know you're doing a lot. You've sponsored tournaments, you've paid people's school fees, and I think and this is my personal opinion, I think you are the type of person that'll be in politics. I'm going to push you. I'm not going to allow you rest. And I've mentioned you in so many places. I tried for doing Osun State. We waste your time. Your governor is in diaspora. I've said it. And it's because the truth is because I know you. You're a go-getter, and you're not doing badly here. You're doing very, very well. Even though we don't blow your trumpet as much as we should blow it. Let me ask you this. Okay. Recently, Professor Patutomi came up with the idea of a shadow government. Then the government has been harassing him, saying it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, that if he was in a parliamentary system of government, yes, that makes sense. But in the presidential system of government, it doesn't make sense. What's your viewpoint on that?
Because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not versed in the law, I really can't comment on the constitutionality of it.
Yeah.
But I am in full support of it. Full support. If I would submit my resume to be on that shadow cabinet. Now, what I think Professor Patutomi is angry.
He's very annoyed.
Because I follow him on Twitter. Yes,
He's very annoyed.
You know,
And rightfully
he's
so.
done. Like, you know what? I'm done with this nonsense.
Honestly.
And he's ready to just charge at the system.
He said if I die, I die.
Yeah, I pray that God, we don't want him to die. He's a father of the Reformation. So we don't want him to die. I've been following him for years. I was a youth leader at Pastor Bakari's church at Latter Rain Assembly, 2007, 2008. I was leading a small group of nationalists in the church. We invited him to come and speak, and he came and he spoke at the youth church. That was my first time meeting was a part of it, and I've been following him closely since then. I think it's just rename it. It's all about, I don't just rename it. Let's call it something innocuous. Because what he's trying to do is to expose the insincerity and incompetence of those who are in government. So if you take a policy as the people in government and you make a mess of it, he will get his team of professionals who will create a proper plan and juxtapose it with what the government has done and expose their inadequacies. And they don't want that to happen. It's a way of showing Nigeria that your true leaders are probably not the ones who are occupying the positions of leadership.
That's yes. Yeah.
Yes. So I know that, yes, President Tinubu does not think Professor Patterson wants to take over government. No, that's not the case. But it's going to expose the ineptitude that exists or insincerity, because there are brilliant people in the Nigerian government. There are, but I think
Nigerians are brilliant. It's not even the uneducated.
The desire to get money, to make money, it derails what they should accomplish. So if you ask me, we can still do it, float it, give it a different name, use language.
I don't think it's going back. He's going to do it.
You can call it alternative for change or something like that. The goal is to get the thinkers together, the experienced professionals together, those who have the knowledge, who have the desire and the passion, but they are either not at home or they cannot participate in the current nature of politics, because the current nature of Nigerian politics is tough. Let me just put it that way. It's very, very tough. So a lot of people who love the nation, who want to do well, they will serve well on that platform. So I think this is my thinking. I'm in full support, and I know a lot of great people are in full support of it. Changing the nomenclature, change a little bit of the wording, the way attorneys are able to play your words, and let's get this thing started. And let's put
my last question to you. I know we're pressed for time now. My last question to you. It's President Tinubu has spent 2 years in office now. I mean, today is exactly 2 years, roughly 2 years, 1 day in office.
That's true.
Yeah, and how do you assess him? What's your honest, holistic assessment of this government thus far? That'd be your last question.
It brought a lot of pain. It's true. President Tinubu has brought a lot of pain to Nigerians.
They inherited it from Buhari.
They inherited things from Buhari, but he came and ripped the band-aid off an open sore in a very brutal manner. Let's not forget what the exchange rate was when he entered and what it is now.
But the exchange rate is good for you now. When you send money,
no, it's not good for the country. It's not good for the country. I cannot be selfish. We cannot be selfish. Like, it's not. People are suffering because of how much import dependent we are in Nigeria.
It's really sad. Yeah.
The floating of the naira. I'm not saying that the policies will not turn out good on the long run, but you don't need to kill the citizens on the short run. You should have had plans in place to augment for the pains of the people. And that was clearly never in place. I insist that President Tinubu brought the Jagabanic arrogance of Lagos into the presidency. It was very, very manifest. And that is why he made that declaration without careful thought. The same way he made the declaration at Niger without careful thought that caused the three countries to leave ECOWAS, and then he found out he couldn't really do. You can't approach governance like that. You are dealing with a country that before you came in, it was already said that it was the poverty capital of the world. People are poor, hungry, destitute in the tens of millions. You have to start your reform thinking about them first. So I think that I hope that the policies that he has enacted that has caused this much pain eventually turns around to pay the country. But the way he did it, it was unnecessary and it was too painful for Nigeria. That's number one. Number two, you removed subsidy so you can channel funds to the state governments, potentially the MDAs, even the senators, without putting in place any system that will ensure that this windfall that was coming from the hands of the oil cabal into the hands of the governments will be carefully accounted for. So what we have seen over the past 3 years has been a tremendous increase in the allocation of states, local governments where they are, and legislators without any commensurate development to accompany them in many places. So you took money from one set of thieves, you were angry at one set of thieves, the oil cabal, diverted all of that money at the expense of Nigerians who are now paying through their industries into the hands of these governments. How do you know that these monies are not being stolen? How many states have implemented the 70,000 naira minimum wage? How many states have built anything to justify? 2 weeks ago, I saw a Nigerian politician say that Nigerian senators, ever since President Tinubu came into power and removed subsidy, that the least a Nigerian senator gets for constituency allowance, the least is over ₦1 billion per year. Before the subsidy removal, he said it was about 200 million naira on the average. But now it's ₦1 billion. What have the senators done with? Every state has, is it 3 or 5 senators?
That's constitutional.
Yes. So if 3 senators in each state are collecting ₦1 billion each, and they are building boreholes, it's a waste. So President Tinubu, I don't think he thought through properly and set up the right systems to cater to the people who would suffer the brunt of the subsidy removal and to hold the people accountable who would get the funds to make sure that it's judicially spent. So that is where I don't think he has, I don't like his approach. I think it has cost, it should have been done. Peter Obi did say he would do the same, but not the same way. The methodology was callous, inconsiderate, and arrogant. That is what I can say, but I wish him luck. Because if he does well for the country.
Well, it's just 2 years. He has 2 years to go, but it does look like they've left governors for politics all over the country now. So, but I'll bring you back, not just to discuss the project you're working on, but I'm sure a lot is going to happen in the near distant future. We're talking the coalition of political parties and so many things. You know, I mean, you have an empirical way of analyzing all these things. So, and you're not new here. I'm sure if I take a roll call now, you probably be here almost 7-8 times. You know. So, but then it is what it is. Nigeria can do better. Africa can do better. The more stable Africa, a more stable, economically developed Africa, will reduce the number of people going abroad by hook or crook. And those Africans in diaspora that have expertise in different areas should find a way to repatriate those skills back home, just like the Chinese, like the Iranians are doing, like the Jews are doing. I mean, it doesn't mean you don't do well in where you are. Of course, you're grateful to the countries you are domiciled in, but there's a lot that Africa also need, especially in the area of a power generation, communication, fiber optics, IT, so much needs to be done. And
artificial intelligence.
Yeah, AI. And these things, to be honest with you, I mean, based on what I see every day, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science at all. It's elementary stuff. Managing an airline successfully, a good rail system that, I mean, people should be able to live in Ibadan and work in VI.
Yes.
I mean, people live in Ipswich and go and work in London. So why can't that be done in Nigeria? So, but it's a wrap there. Adejuwon, thank you for your time always. Thank you for heeding our call. We respect it and the time you give us. It's always a joy to have you with us. And to all our viewers, it's a wrap there. See you next week, Friday. God bless you all. Bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balogun.
Anytime. You're welcome. Anytime.